the 28th of October, 2020. Chapter 2, Part 2. The company of 50 men galloped across the grassy plains on their horses. Every man in the company was athletically built. One of them was particularly eye-catching. There was no better word to describe him than fit. His muscles were prominent, even though he was wearing a breastplate. He was around 30 years old, and his face was tanned from long days of the sun and covered in wrinkles. His black hair was neat and trimmed, and his dark eyes had a sharp look about them. The man riding by his side said, "Warrior Captain, we're almost at the first village on our patrol route." "Ah, yes, Vice Captain." Gersulf Stronhof, the renowned warrior captain of the Reitze kingdom, did not see any villages. He calmed his racing heart and maintained his mount speed, and although he had kept his horse pace at one which he should not be overly fatiguing, they had hustled all the way here from the royal capital, and fatigue was beginning to accumulate within Gesef's body. It must have been at least as bad for his horse, which was why he tried not to overburden it. "I hope they're all right," the vice captain said. There was a current of unease running beneath these words, and Gesef felt the same way. The king had ordered Gesef and his men, imperial knights, when spotted at the border. If their reports are true, eliminate them immediately. The city of Irantal was closed, and under normal circumstances it would be faster to send troops from there. However, the imperial knights were powerful and well equipped, and there was an insurmountable gap between them and average conquerors. The only people in the kingdom which could match up to the imperial knights were Gesef and his troops. However, handling the entire task to Gesef and his men alone was the height of foolishness. Before Gesef reached their objective, other troops could have been mobilized in order to protect the villages. Though they could not win, they could at least hold them off. There were many other methods they could have employed. However, they had not used any of them. No, they could not. Gesef, who knew the reason why, was filled with agitation. He tightly gripped the reins and tried not to tug on them. Even so, it was difficult to suppress the thoughts burning in his heart. "Warrior Captain, just having us do the searching is pointless. Couldn't we bring everyone from the warrior band and have them help us? We could also hire adventurers from Irantal to help us out. Why are we doing this?" "Enough, Vice Captain. Things might go poorly if someone heard that imperial knights were running loose in the kingdom's territory." "Warrior Captain, there's nobody here. You don't have to stand on ceremony, but I hope you can tell me the truth," Vice Captain said with a smile. Then he continued, "Was it those nobles?" Gesef did not reply to those disdainful words, because that was exactly the case. "Those damn nobles, treating human lives like they were pieces in their power struggles. And outside of that, since it's the king's domain, they can use any problems here to take shouts at the king." "Not all nobles think that." "Maybe you're right, Warrior Captain. And there's some nobles who think of the people, for example the Golden Princess. But apart from her, there's practically no one else. The only kingdom is ruled by a dictator. Couldn't we ignore those damn nobles and work for the good of the people? If you interfere too strongly, it might lead to civil war. It would tear the kingdom apart. Given that we're facing the threat of the Empire's expanding authorities, a war like that would be a disaster for the Commonwealth." "I know that, but just leave this matter aside," Gesef's voice cut off halfway, as his eyes looked intensely forward. Thick black smoke rose from behind the small hillside. It was not just one or two clumps. Everyone present knew what that meant. Gesef could not help but click his tongue, and he squeezed his legs around his horse's flank. The scene which the rapidly galloping Gesef and company saw did not deviate from their expectations. Before them spread an expanse of blackened ground, the scorched remains of a village. The corpses of several of the burned houses remained standing like tombstones. Gesef gave an order with the voice of steel. "Everyone, we are moving. Quickly now." The village had been put to the torch, and only the burned skeletons of the destroyed homes gave any clue as to what it had been like before. The smell of blood blended with the stench of burning as one walked between them. Gesef's face was calm, with no hint of any emotions on it. However, no expression could convey his feelings more clearly than this. The same applied to the Vice Captain, who walked by Gesef's side. Over 100 villagers had lived here. 6 had survived, everyone else had been mercilessly slain, whether they were women, children, or infants. Aye, Captain. As some of our people return to survivors to Iran. But what is this? You're right, it's a big risk. Even so, we can't just abandon them like this. Iran was directly administered by the king, and protecting its surrounding villages was the king's duty. Abandoning the survivors here would cause a lot of problems. One could imagine how the noble faction, which opposed the king, would seize on that opportunity to make trouble for him. More importantly, please consider a lot of these survivors witnessed imperial knights. We can consider that as having fulfilled the first part of the king's order. I feel we should fall back for now and make sufficient preparation in Iran before carrying out the next plan. No. Warrior Captain, you should by now know that this is a trap. The timing of the attack came too close to our arrival at Iran to be anything but a coincidence. Their ruthless actions were only committed after we arrived, and the reason why they did not kill everyone was in order to use them as bait for a trap. The survivors had not evaded the knights. Rather, the enemy had not finished him off. It might be a plot to divide Gass's strength by having him split off his men to protect the survivors. Warrior Captain, do you intend to keep at it, knowing well that there is a trap? Indeed. Warrior Captain, are you serious about that? Indeed, you are strong, and you could easily defeat 100 knights. However, the Empire has that old man. Even you would be in great danger against him. There's also a chance that you might lose against the Empire's renowned 4 knights, unequipped as you are. Therefore, I beg you to fall back. To the king, losing a few villages is nothing compared to losing you. Joseph could only listen quietly, as his vice-captain got more and more nervous. If we won't fall back, then we should leave the survivors behind and launch a pursuit with all of us. That would be the wisest option. But at the same time, it would mean that we would be leaving them to their deaths. Do you think they can survive by themselves? The vice-captain would not reply, because he knew the survivors' chance by themselves were practically non-existent. Without someone to protect and escort them to a safe area, they would be dead in days. Even so, the vice-captain spoke. No, he had to speak. Warrior Captain, yours is the most valuable life here. The villagers' lives are nothing in comparison. Jesus was well aware of the painful decision the vice-captain had made, and he was angered at himself for having forced him to say such a thing. Even so, he could not comply with the vice-captain's request. I was born a commoner, and so were you. Indeed, and I listened in admiration of you, Warrior Captain. I recall you were born a village as well. Yes, which is why life in a village is difficult, and death is a constant companion. It is not uncommon for a village to be attacked by a monster and many lives lost as a result. Am I wrong? No, you are not. When a monster shows up, the rank-and-file soldiers are hard-pressed to deal with. If a village does not have the money to hire adventurers to deal with monsters, all they can do is to hunker down and wait for monsters to leave. And that's right. Then can you say you did not look forward to something like this? Can you say you did not hope for the nobles or someone strong to come and save you? It would be a lie to say that I didn't. But the fact is that nobody ever came forward to help. At least the lord of the land where my village was did not pay for adventurers to help us. Since that is the case, why don't we prove that we are not like him? Come, let us save these people. The vice-captain thought of his own experiences, could not say anything in response. Vice-captain, let's show the villagers that the heroes who are willingly plunged into danger to save others look like. Let's show them how the strong will save the weak. Joseph's eyes met with the vice-captain's, and countless emotions passed between. His voice somewhat tired but graceful. The vice-captain replied, Then allow me to lead the men. There are many who can replace me, but none who can take the place of you, warrior captain. Don't be foolish. My chances of survival are higher. Remember, we are not going to die to save the people of the kingdom. The vice-captain opened his mouth several times as though to speak, but at the end he chose to remain silent. Then pick the soldiers who will follow you in escorting the villagers to Iran. The crimson light of the setting sun shone on a group of men upon the plains. They were 45. They must have had excellent camouflage techniques, given the way they had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Magic was most likely involved. It was obvious at a glance that they were not simple mercenaries, travelers, or adventurers. They were all dressed in the same way, in armor made of special metal, which emphasized defensive power and mobility. After enchantment, they were more protective than full-plate armor. The bags on their backs were small, hardly the kind one would expect a traveler to carry. Those bags were enchanted as well. Their belts were special, designed to carry potions, and the capes on their backs also radiated an aura of magic. Gathering the army set of magic items would be a daunting task, be it in terms of time, money, or effort required. The fact that these peoples were outfitted in this outfit of equipment was a clear sign they had the backing of a nation, or the equivalent. However, there were no markings or badges on them, which might reveal their allegiance. In other words, they were hiding the fact they were a Black Ops unit. They looked at the ruins of the village with emotionless eyes. Although the stink of blood and fire hung heavy in the air, their merciless gazes seemed to say that this was the only to be expected. They fled. The words were spoken with a hint of disappointment. Well, that is only to be expected. We will continue attacking villages to draw him out. The beast must be lured into the trap. The man who spoke cast a razor-sharp look in the direction where Gator's company was riding. Show me the village which we will be using as baits.